All right, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. For those joining us for the first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world, and we are particularly excited because this is Oceans Week. So leading up to Saturday's Oceans Day, or World Oceans Day, we are spending the entire week commemorating and showcasing amazing ocean researchers, educators, and facilities from around the world. So thank you guys so much for joining us, especially to our new class today, joining for the very first time. Right now, we've got 4 classes from across North America taking part. I'll give them a chance to say hello, and then we'll get started. We've got Miss Charlton's grade 1 and 2s in Kelowna, NBC. Hi, guys.
That's us. Let's do it. Hello.
Oh, there's so many of you. We've got Miss Birch 4-5s in Georgetown, Ontario. Hi, guys. Hi. Oh, there we go. We've got Miss Reed's grade 4s in Tatamagouche, Nova Scotia. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Most fun town name to say ever. And we've got Miss Wagner and Miss Finn's grade 4s in Freehold, New Jersey, our favorite place. Oh, guys. Of course, the reason you guys are all here is for our speakers. So we are joined live by Teresa at the Turtle Hospital in Marathon, Florida, our longest-lasting, most frequent hangout partner. So they rescue, rehabilitate, and re-release injured sea turtles and have been operating since the 80s. They're a marvelous facility, and I look very, very forward to showcasing a few turtles with you. Thank you so much, Teresa, and take it away.
Hi, guys. So, yeah, we take care of all of the sick and injured sea turtles that pop up anywhere throughout the Florida Keys, and we get quite a few. Every year, we typically get in about 100. So, currently, we have 55. So it's about average for us, but almost a full house. So we're going to start with this first guy. This is Junior, and he's a juvenile green sea turtle. The green sea turtles are one of the more common species that we get, but he came to us back in the middle of March. Turns out he was entangled in fishing line and a crab trap. So it was entangled around his left front flipper, but they don't have fingers. They don't have thumbs. They can't unentangle themselves. So it just got wrapped around tighter and tighter until it eventually cut off the circulation. So by the time that he came in, that flipper was dead. It was necrotic. So there wasn't anything more we could do to fix it. So we had to amputate. So he only has 3 flippers now, but that's okay. He'll still be able to be released. He'll always look a little bit different. Think of a 3-legged dog, but still be able to do everything that a normal turtle does. We just have to give him a chance to heal. So for right now, he's just in the smaller tank. He's got a little toy in there, a little obstacle. Once he heals up a little bit more, we can transfer him to one of our larger tanks, give him just a little bit more chance to exercise. But they're kind of like us. When they're sick, they get very weak and tired, and they just want to sleep all day. So we give them that chance to be in the smaller tank, sometimes the shallower water. And then as they get stronger, as they get healthier, then they get more active and they need more space. But some of our turtles get little baths. So like this guy, this is Tommy. He's one of our other juvenile green sea turtles. And so sea turtles live in the ocean, which means that they're going to get algae and even some barnacles growing on their shell, which when they're in the wild, they have fish and shrimp, little critters that'll clean off the algae and the barnacles off of their shell. Here, they don't have that. Here they have us. So we have to give them regular baths, especially when they're sick. So we take a little scrub brush and then scrub them down because we have to make sure that they stay nice and clean. Because just like when we're sick, we have to stay clean. Well, so do they. But Tommy came in because he has tumors. So it's something that these green sea turtles get. It's a virus. It's called fibropapilloma. We call it FP for short. But it causes tumors to grow on their soft tissue. So neck, flippers, and eyes. So as he's moving around, you might notice that back here in his kind of armpit, he's got those little funny looking growths, and he's got a little one right there on his neck. Those are his tumors. So when they come in, we have to do surgery, remove those tumors, but you can't remove all of them at once, so you just break it up into smaller surgeries. So we've removed the tumors off of his eyes and around like the other flipper, and some off of his neck, but he still needs one more surgery before we can remove those last. So just a couple more weeks, not too much longer. But he's almost done with his bath. Then he'll be able to go back in his tank. But these green sea turtles, these are the ones that are very, very pretty. They have a very pretty head, a very pretty pattern on their shell as well. And kind of the interesting thing is that they're all unique. You won't ever find two turtles that look exactly the same, but you can't use the pattern on their shell like a fingerprint. You can't use it for identification because as these turtles grow up, as they get larger, that pattern, it's going to warp. It's going to change. They'll still be pretty, just be a different kind of pretty, especially for the greens. The loggerheads, which are the other common species that we get, you can classify these guys as handsome, but they're not really pretty. So like this is Madea. She's one of our loggerhead turtles. She's about 180 pounds. So she's a big turtle. So to kind of give you an idea, her head is bigger than my hand. That's why they're called loggerheads. But Madea was hit by a boat. So she's got a lot of damage to her shell and also one little slice to that right front flipper. So she's only been here for a few weeks, not quite a month yet. So she's still healing, but that shell will heal. So we can't really do a whole lot to help it. Like we can't do stitches, like if you got a deep cut. But what we're using is a lot of honey. Honey's like natural neosporin. It's a natural antibiotic, antiseptic. So that way we kind of coat the wound in that so that way it's not going to develop an infection. And it's nice and sticky, so it stays on a lot longer than everything else. Plus it is honey. So if it does wash off into the water, it's okay if it gets in their eyes or in their mouth. But we go through a lot of honey, especially with a big turtle. But that shell will heal. It'll eventually knit back together because that shell is bone. So just like when you break your arm, it heals. So will that shell, but she'll just never fully regenerate. She'll just always have a scar. But that's okay. Scars are a part of growing up. Now she's waking up. So sea turtles, when they're sleeping, so sitting on the bottom, not expending any energy, they can hold their breath up to about 5 hours. So they can hold their breath a lot longer than we can. And of course, when they're sick, they just sleep a lot more often than normal. And then as they start feeling better, that's when they start getting more and more active. So like Teddy's a large green sea turtle. He's about 130 pounds. He came in back at the end of March. He had a severe lung infection and pneumonia. So we've gotten that mostly healed up. He's still sick. He's still floating, but he's starting to feel better. So he's starting to get more and more active, which is why he's being a crazy turtle at the moment. But he's still sick. So these periods of activity don't last for too long. And he does still float for a good chunk of the day. So we've actually added little foam blocks, sort of like floaties, to his right side. So that way when he is kind of floating, a lot of times he's lopsided. That way, that'll help kind of level him out. See, but now he's tired. Because they're just like us. Because when we get sick, you can't go out and run a marathon. Same thing with these turtles. So his periods of activity are just short. But he is getting better. So as he continues to get better, his periods of activity will get longer. But he likes to go stick his head in the corner. Because sea turtles, they can't pull their heads and their flippers inside their shell like a box turtle can. So their heads and their flippers are always out. But they think that if they hide their head, like up underneath a rock or a ledge or a reef, they think that if they can't see us, that we can't see them. So he goes and sticks his head in the corner and he thinks that he's invisible. So we just kind of let him think that. It makes him comfortable that way. But now he's just going to go sleep. He's going to go take a little nap. They don't have the same set schedule that we do. It's not like sun is up, they're awake, sun goes down, they go to sleep. They just kind of take little cat naps throughout the day whenever they're tired. So, makes it kind of fun. Okay, but one of the really cool things about us is that we're located on an island. The Florida Keys, it's a string of islands, a little bit more than 100 miles long. It's why we have so many sea turtles down here, because we have a lot more ocean than land. And it stays pretty warm down here all year round. And so it's actually how we get most of our turtles is from the boaters and the fishermen. So the people that are out there on the water, so they see a turtle that just doesn't look normal. So then they call us. One of our rehab staff is always on call. So no matter when they get that turtle call, we have a turtle ambulance. We'll go pick that turtle up. And then as a thank you for them rescuing that turtle, then they get to name it. That's why some of our turtles have some very interesting names. But the turtles, they don't care. They're not like dogs. They don't respond to their names. Their names are really just for us. So, makes it fun. But our biggest turtle.
I've never had to twist so many arms to feed turtles.
This guy, that is Bowie. And of course, she's swimming away from me. But she's actually one of our non-releasable turtles. Because everybody we've seen so far, those are patients. So that means that once they're healthy, they're going to get released. Because we don't want to keep a perfectly healthy turtle. But sometimes when we do get them healthy, they just can't survive on their own anymore in the wild. So they get to hang out here. We have this nice 160,000 gallon saltwater tidal pool. So it's connected directly to the ocean. So it's tidal, it's got fish. It's pretty much as natural a pool as we can make. So makes it perfect habitat for these turtles that we cannot release. Of course, Bowie's going to be on the far side. But Bowie's here because she has what we call Bubblebutt syndrome, which is what happens when they get hit by a boat, and then it causes air to get stuck, and it causes nerve damage and paralysis, which means that now that turtle floats. Can't get rid of that floating, cannot release a floating turtle, so they have to stay here. And we are open to the public, so we've got some people down there. So if you ever find yourself in the Florida Keys, you can come say hello to these guys in person. Because the turtles, they're always changing. So it keeps it nice and fun. So I said that right now we've got 55 turtles, but tomorrow we might have 56. We never know. But we'll go over here. Let's see. Who do we want to meet? We'll meet Captain Mulligan. Told you, sometimes the names are fun. But Captain Mulligan has tumors. So he's got those little growths all over his neck, all over his flippers, all over his eyes. So his aren't super large. He just has a lot of them. But he's only been here since the end of April. So a little bit more than a month. So we've already removed some of his tumors, but he's just going to need a couple more surgeries. So almost there. But he's another green sea turtle. We also get the occasional Kemps Ridley. Oh, he doesn't want to say hi today. He's going to be shy. So we'll go over and meet one of our other Kemps Ridleys. Because the Kemps Ridleys are the most critically endangered species. So they're very rare. We don't get these guys too often. But they look a little bit different. Their shell's a little bit more round. And they're also more of a grayish color rather than the brown, like the loggerheads and the greens. And when these guys grow up, they're going to turn almost white. They're going to turn a very pale gray, almost a whitish color, which also gives them their secondary name, the ghost turtles, because they do look like a ghost. But this guy's been with us for a few months now. He actually was found up in Cape Cod. up near New England back in December because they hang out up in New England over the summertime when it's nice and warm, but then it gets to be winter and it gets cold. Now, sea turtles are reptiles, so they're cold-blooded. They get their body temperature based off of the water temperature. That's why they like Florida and the Keys so much, because it stays pretty warm down here. But when it does get too cold, they get too cold. Their bodies start to shut down. It's what we call being cold-stunned. So they go to the New England Aquarium, and then they get shipped south. Pretty much any facility that's in slightly warmer climates that has space. So we ended up with 30 of them last December. We've released most of them. We've got 3 left because these 3 ended up with either pneumonia or severe infections, which just takes a little bit extra time to heal. So he's doing a lot better. He's getting a lot more active. He's just feeling better, but still probably needs at least another month or 2. But not too much longer. He's definitely on that upward path at this point. But he's just really cool because he looks a little bit different. But there are 5 species that are found around Florida. There's only 7 species in the entire world. So the ones that we see most often are these loggerheads and the greens. But then there's also the Kemps Ridleys, the leatherbacks, and the hawksbills. But we don't currently have any hawksbills or leatherbacks. So just those 3 for now. But we'll go back down here to our non-releasables. And let's see if we can find Bubblebutt. Well, these 2, they're not the Bubblebutt, but we've got Chance and Corey, but these guys float. That's because they have that Bubblebutt syndrome, because they can't help it. And the problem with that floating in the wild is that if they're up the top, all of their food is at the bottom, so they would slowly starve, which is not a good thing. So while they're here, it's okay if they float, because we can feed them up at the top. We won't let them starve. But we also try to make it a little bit more comfortable for them. So we attach lead weight to the outside of their shell. So like this guy, this is the original Bubblebutt. He's been here since 1989. But he's got a gray oval on his butt. That is his weight. So that way when he wants to, he can go down to the bottom and go to sleep. That's just more comfortable for them down there. Just like for us, it's more comfortable for us to sleep in our own bed than somebody else's bed. But eventually that weight is going to fall off. So even with the weight, we still cannot release him. Because once you release a sea turtle, they're not ever coming back. Especially not for a checkup. But one of the cool things about sea turtles is that sea turtles, they are solitary. So when they're in the wild, they're by themselves. They don't travel in groups. So the movie Finding Nemo got that part wrong. Because they don't meet their parents. They don't go traveling the currents together. So when they're patients and we have to keep them by themselves, they're okay with that. They're used to being by themselves. And then even when you do put them together, like these guys, they're not mean, but there's no concept of social etiquette. Like they don't care. So they'll just ignore each other. So sometimes they will knock into each other, or they'll steal food from each other, because they just don't care. A lot of ways it's very similar to having brothers and sisters. Okay, but questions?
Yeah, let's dive right in. Thank you so much, Teresa. So we had a bunch of other classes join us in the midst of that, and we've got a bunch of groups watching on YouTube Live. So if you guys want to type in questions, please do. Don't be shy. But yeah, let's start with Miss Charlton's class. If you guys have a question to kick us off, come on.
All right, go. Lucian, you want to come right up to me and ask your question?
Oh, I can demute you guys. Yeah, I'll control all your mics. Don't worry. There you go. You're good to go.
I liked when Flip-Flop was just like.
So we can't see you right now, Lucian. You just got to tell your question. But he liked when Lucian was flopping around. Did you have a question about Flip-Flop?
Yeah. Ready? Why did he get his needle?
Why did he have to have a needle? Missed that part.
Yeah.
Well, when they're sick, they have to get their medications. And depending on the type of medication, depends on how they get it. So yes, they do sometimes get pills, but sometimes they get shots. But they don't always like shots. They don't always understand that what we're trying to do is to help them. So in a lot of ways, they're kind of like toddlers in that regard. So we just kind of have to go very quick, give them the shot, and then they like flop around for a minute or two because it stings. Because you guys have all gotten shots, you know, it kind of stings just a little bit, but then it's good.
Absolutely. Great question. All right, Miss Burt's class, if you guys have a question, come on up.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Hayden.
What happens if you leave the tumors on?
Well, the tumors never stop growing. So eventually the tumor will just get too large and kill the turtle.
Yeah.
Because think about it. If you have something very large growing over your eye, you can't see. Or if you have something very large around your foot on your arm, you can't move your arm. And trying to go around and especially trying to swim without moving your arms doesn't really work out too well.
No, it doesn't.
So that's why they have to come to us so we can remove those tumors and they can get nice and healthy.
Excellent. Great questions, guys, to kick us off. All right, let's go to Miss Reed's class. You have one?
Yeah, we have a question here.
Excellent.
Should I ask it? What was the most turtle you have seen?
What's the most... Sorry, can you...
Turtle. The most severe injury.
Most severe injury?
Well, sometimes it is like Madea, like her pretty severe boat strike, but sometimes it's also turtles that come in with multiple injuries. So I see Montel. Let's see if I can get a view of Montel.
Poor Montel ends up in every hangout.
Yeah. Well, Montel's a pretty awesome turtle.
Yeah.
So he kind of hanging out right here next to the edge. But he's had everything happen to him. He's been hit by a boat, bit by a shark, entangled in fishing line, and he's had tumors. So he's been hit by a missing half of that right front flipper, missing all of his left front flipper, his right eye, and his shell is dented on his left side. So he's had a rough life. But in order to be released, they need 3 full functioning flippers, like Junior. Junior will be good. Montel only has 2.5 flippers and 1 eye, so he's just not very fast. But that's okay. In here, he doesn't have to be very fast. He doesn't have to worry about those boats or those sharks.
Well, I'm glad we got a chance to see him. So yes, great question, guys. All right, let's go to Miss Wagner's class and Miss Finn's class, both. Come on up, guys.
How much does the largest turtle weigh?
Well, our largest turtle is Bowie. She's about 330 pounds. At the moment, she's actually hanging out in the very middle of our pool underneath our buoy. But that's how she got her name, because she kind of floats like a buoy. But like green sea turtles, these guys will get to be about 500 pounds. Loggerheads up to about 400 pounds. But the largest species, which we don't have, are the leatherbacks. Leatherbacks will get to be up to about 2,000 pounds. So they are just massive, which means that they don't like being in shallow water. They don't like being near shore, which is why they don't like being in the Keys, which is kind of a good thing, because trying to take care of an animal that's 2,000 pounds would not exactly be easy.
Not at all. But I do urge the classes to look up leatherback turtles, because they are stunningly beautiful. If you want a gorgeous animal, leatherback turtles are them. All right, we had Miss Elliott's class join from Vermilion Bay, Ontario, grade 5-6. And if you guys have a question, come on up.
Okay, you're gonna go right here.
Great, come on up.
Okay, are we on?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
How deep is the water for the ones that can't be released?
Good question.
Well, because this pool is connected directly to the ocean, because the ocean is not that far away, it does change with the tides. So it's typically about 13 to 14 feet deep, and then it's a pretty good size. So gives them a lot of space that equals roughly about 160,000 gallons. But like for our patients, it all depends on how sick they are. So some of them are in the shallower tanks, some have the full tanks, because when they're sick, we don't want to make it too hard for them to come up to the surface to breathe, because they don't always have a lot of energy. Like this little guy, this is Cream of Tartar. I told you they sometimes get the funny names. But he doesn't care. He doesn't know what his name is. But when he came in, he was in really, really rough shape. So that is actually what he looked like. He was covered in barnacles. Like you could barely tell it was a turtle. But he had so many barnacles. He had been floating for so long that he was also super skinny. So first day that he was here, we actually had to keep him dry docked. We didn't trust him in water. But then we only kept him in water that was just enough to wet his shell. He didn't have to swim. He didn't have to move. All he had to do was sleep and lift his head up, because that's all he had the energy for at that point. But now, that was middle of March. Now, 3.5 months later, he's awesome. It's a completely different turtle. Now he's swimming around. His shell is looking amazing. Still needs a little bit more time to finish healing, but a turtle that came in that we were thinking was not going to survive did a complete 180, and now he will get to be released. He's thriving.
Very cool. Thank you so much. What a great story. All right, and then we had, I'm not sure if Miss Hedigan's class or Miss Schlebbel's class, but Courtney ABC, if you guys have a question, you should be good to go. Come on up.
What's the question right there?
Oh.
We need to ask it. So Kyla,
What?
it's our turn. What's our question?
Oh,
Kyla, go ahead.
my question is, why don't you let some of the turtles that are like bigger and stuff go?
Well, because they can't always survive on their own. So, like, Bowie. There she is. She's kind of came out from underneath her buoy. She is a big turtle. She's 330 pounds. She is our biggest turtle. But she floats. She's got that Bubblebutt syndrome, which here is okay. But if she floated in the wild, all of her food is at the bottom because she eats seagrass and algae. That's all at the bottom. If she can't get down to the bottom because she floats, then she can't eat. She would starve. And we're not going to let our turtles starve. That's not really nice. So some of them will stay here. But like eventually Bowie will end up at another facility. So a zoo or an aquarium, someplace that is larger. So that way she has a little bit more space and some new friends. We've sent turtles all across the U.S. We actually sent a 300-pound turtle a few years ago out to Las Vegas. His name is OD. He's now hanging out at the Shark Reef Aquarium at Mandalay Bay.
And may soon have a whole show on the strip. So we'll see how that goes. All right, we got some great questions from groups online too, so I want to pass them along. Miss Brown's class wanted to ask, how do you know if turtles have pneumonia?
Well, when they float. So when a turtle is sick, doesn't matter how or why they're sick. If they are sick, they float. So like even turtles, like that's Coasty. He was found by the Coast Guard. He has Bubblebutt, but from the outside, he looks perfect. Like his boat strike wasn't super deep like Madea's. It wasn't super wide. And at this point, it is healed, so you can barely tell where he was hit by that boat. But you know that something's not right because he does float. Because yes, some turtles are easy to tell when they're sick. Either turtles like Cream of Tartar that are covered in barnacles, or they're covered in tumors, or they are like Madea and they've got that boat strike. But if they're floating and they're not super active, that's how you know that they're sick. So we'll go back up and kind of check out Teddy again, because I'm sure Teddy is sleeping. And I'll give you a nice... Oh, he just ran away. There was an iguana. We get all sorts of fun wildlife down here, iguanas included. But, so if you look at Teddy, like he's still taking his nap, but he's floating. And he's floating lopsided. So even if you didn't know what was wrong, you just know that that's not normal. It's not normal behavior. Because especially when you are out there on a boat, if you see a sea turtle, as soon as they see you, they're going to dive down and disappear. But when you have one of these turtles that is sick, they may try to dive down, but they're not going to get very far. They may make it 5 or 10 feet, and then they're going to pop right back up to the top. Or they're going to try to swim down and not get anywhere either.
Yeah. And so once you see that a turtle's sick, there's tests you can do to find out what exactly is wrong with it?
Yep. So
Yeah.
they get a full physical when they come in, just like we do when we go to the hospital. So kind of just a physical exam, just looking on the outside, seeing what we can see. Plus they get weighed, they get measured. We do x-rays, and then we do blood work. So like for Teddy, his x-rays, his lungs are all cloudy and gunky. So that's not a good sign.
Okay. Well, first of all, we appreciate you doing the whole workout to get across the entire facility to go back to show us the turtles. So thank you so much for that. Quick question for Miss Soltau's class, which is, how can turtles possibly stay that long underwater? How can they breathe for 5 hours? It's amazing.
Well, all of their body systems run a lot slower than ours do. So their heart rate, respiration, metabolism, that's all slower. So like a normal heart rate for a sea turtle's about 24, 28 beats per minute. Which if yours was that low, you'd be almost dead. It's not a good thing. But for them, that's normal. And then when they're sleeping, they just drop it down even more. Plus, when they're sleeping, they're not actually holding that air in their lungs. Because if they did, they would float, because they would have 2 big bags of air like we do. But their lungs actually look more like sponges. So it's a lot more surface area. So they can actually pull like the air directly into their bloodstream, so it's a lot more readily available for their muscles and their tissues.
Okay, very cool. We do have a question from a group all the way in India, which I'll save that to last, but it's one of my favorite questions I've ever received. But let's do a whole other round of questions with you guys here. So Miss Charlton's class, if you guys have a second question, come on up.
Thank you. Landon has a question. Go ahead, Landon.
How do you catch all the sea turtles? I see a dog, that's where you catch them. But what do you catch them with and how?
What do you catch them with and how?
Well, depends on how they're injured. So like you can't do like a Band-Aid for these sea turtles, because Band-Aids don't work out too well underwater. So if we can leave it open, because salt water is actually really good for them, because they're kind of designed to be in salt water. But in some cases, we will use waterproof bandages, not specifically for sea turtles, but that you can even use on people. We kind of have to do that a lot. They don't make a lot of things specifically for sea turtles, so we kind of have to adapt and have to be very flexible. But in some cases, if we need to, we can do stainless steel plates to kind of hold the shell together. But like Madea, like her boat strike, it's too wide. Like that's not a really good option. But it's kind of on a turtle by turtle basis. It's not always one plan fixes all. Same thing with people. You treat yourself differently if you have a broken arm versus a cut.
Yep. Great answer. All right. Ms. Bert's class, if you guys have a second question, come on up.
If you cut off the tumors, will they still survive?
Well, yeah, because we're cutting off the tumors to help the turtle survive. So like flip-flop, the one we saw before we got started, when he was getting his meds because he was out of his water, because can't really do meds underwater. Doesn't work out too well. When he came in, he had tumors. He had tumors all up under his rear flippers, on his neck, even on his eyes. And he actually just had his last surgery last week. We got the last of those off. So now he's just recuperating. So now he can see. He can move. He's feeling a lot better. So over the next few weeks, as he does recuperate, he'll start being more and more active. But at the moment, he's still recuperating, so he's just still floating.
Perfect. What a cutie. All right. Miss Reed's class, if you guys have a second question, come on up.
What is the most rare turtle you have?
Well, the Kemps Ridleys, they're the most critically endangered species in the entire world because they only nest on 2 beaches in the entire world. So they're not kind of everywhere like the greens and the loggerheads are. But we're also kind of special at this point. Let's see if he is awake. Because we have an olive Ridley at the moment. And he's sleeping. He's hiding at the moment. So olive Ridleys are kind of like the sister species to the Kemps Ridleys, because the Kemps Ridleys are the ones that are typically in the Atlantic Ocean, especially in the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico. The olive Ridleys are in the Pacific Ocean and kind of the southern Atlantic. They don't typically get further north than like Puerto Rico. So we had one pop up back in the middle of February. His name is Harry. He was entangled in a net. He's coming up to say hi. See this gray turtle? That is Harry. He's an olive Ridley. So he looks very, very similar to the Kemps. It's only once they get bigger that the Kemps, they get very light in color, so they turn into the ghost turtles. But he will get darker. He'll get more of like a dark olive green color, which is how he gets his name.
Awesome. All right, we'll take 3 more questions. So we're going to do Miss Elliott's class first. You're good? Yep.
Have you ever sent turtles to Canada?
I don't know. Well, sea turtles don't always do well in Canada because Canada's a little bit too cold. They don't like it when it's cold. It's one of the perks about being with sea turtles is that I don't have to be anywhere that it's cold because I don't like the cold either.
Fun little addendum to that story, and for the Nova Scotia class especially. So the 2 turtles that are currently living at Ripley's Aquarium in Toronto, which we do a lot of hangouts with them too, they came from the Halifax area. They were research turtles, and then we ended up with them there. So even if the turtle hospital is not sending them up to our cold, igloo-infested, polar bear-infested lands up here, there are some turtles in Canada in some places. All right, Miss Hedekin's class, or again, Miss Schnippel's class, you guys want to end us off for live questions? Come on up.
I have a question.
I've typed it.
Oh.
How hard? Fast. How hard are the turtles? How hard are the turtle shells, and how many turtles do you have in the facility?
Perfect.
Well, we've got 55 turtles right now. We typically get in about 100 every year. And their shells are pretty hard because their shells are bone. So think about your bones. Your bones are pretty hard, but you can still break a bone. So kind of same thing with these turtles. So like this is Boca, found right off of Boca Chica Key. But Boca has tumors, but she was also hit by a boat. So she's got a scar. She got a little chunk missing from the back edge of her shell. So it's healed. She'll just always have a little chunk missing. Just like Madea, when Madea heals, she'll always have a scar.
Right. Good analogy with people breaking their arms. And yeah, excellent, guys. All right, I want to take one last question from a group online, which is, again, from the class all the way in India, which wanted to ask, Teresa, personally, what is your happiest or most satisfying moment at the Turtle Hospital?
Well, it's always great to be able to release these turtles because we are a hospital. So sometimes when these turtles come in, there's nothing we can do because we do get some turtles that die just because They're just too severely injured. But it's always very rewarding when they do survive. So like especially like when Cream of Tartar, when he gets released, that's going to both be a very happy day, but also a very sad day. Oh, startled him a little bit. Because for the first probably close to 48 hours that he was here, we did around the clock 24-hour care. Just because he couldn't handle it on his own. He was just in such rough shape. But now watching him as he's survived and how he's thrived and just how good he looks now is just amazing. And we also know that he's still going to improve. And that's just going to be really happy when we do get to see him go. But also really sad because at this point we're kind of attached to him. He's not attached to us because he doesn't care. He'll be more than happy to be out there in the wild. But we get attached to them.
Great answer. That's so lovely. Teresa, for classes that might want to learn more, where can they go to learn more about the Turtle Hospital, what you guys do, some of the other turtles in your facility?
Well, we have our website, which is turtlehospital.org. So we keep all of our patients updated as to like if they're tumor free now or how they're healing or if they're getting ready to be released or have just recently been released. We also have a couple turtles that when we release them that we tag them and we do a satellite tag so you can go online and track them and kind of see where they're going. We can't do that with everybody. We do that with a couple of them every year. But we also have our Facebook page that we get updates on regularly. And we also regularly do Facebook Live videos. So if we've got surgery going on or like a fun procedure going on, then we'll do that as a live video as well.
Outstanding. Well, do check that out. We'll pass along the website to classes. I also want to note that the Turtle Hospital is a charity, so if you guys ever want to contribute to a really great cause, doing some amazing things for turtles, as you guys have seen today, you can go on there and donate. What we want to do at the end of every hangout, guys, I'm going to demute every class's microphone, so boys and girls, if you guys could get ready to join me in saying a huge thank you to Teresa. Everyone is now demuted, and go right ahead. Thank you guys so much for joining us for Oceans Week. Teresa, that was marvelous. Thanks so much for another amazing year of Hangouts with the Turtle Hospital.
You're welcome. You guys enjoy the rest of your day.
Awesome.